African Information Network, AIN.
For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother, be joined to his wife, and they shall both become one flesh. That is the book of Matthew, chapter 19, verse 5, from the scriptures. Pastors and ministers in wedding ceremonies have used this verse over and over again to join man and woman together in holy matrimony. And down the line, when they get to the exchange of vows, they use another set of promises that says that the couple promise to be together from that day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do them part. Hello there, I am Dr. Michael Umunna. This is African Information Network. I am welcoming you to a sizzling episode of Focal Point Africa. The title of this episode is Irreconcilable Differences, Divorce Amongst First-Generation Africans in America. So, in spite of all these verses, in spite of this verse from the Bible, and in spite of all the vows that the couple make, why is it that divorce in America is growing at an accelerating rate? Actually, somebody called it astronomical rate. Today, we are going to look at reasons for divorce amongst first-generation Africans in America. But first of all, there are two very important concepts that we'll have to consider that will help us to better understand the topic under discussion. We are going to first look at the concept marriage, because you cannot get a divorce until you are married. So what is marriage? Primarily, marriage is defined as the formal unification of a man and a woman in matrimony. And there are four general types of marriages. The first is the court marriage. The court marriage is where a couple, a man and a woman, go before a justice of the peace or a judge in the court of law, and they take vows in the presence of maybe some witnesses. They take vows and promise to love each other, promise to be together until death do them part. And then there is a second kind of marriage called customary marriage. In most cases, we refer to that kind of marriage as traditional marriage. In this case, communities are brought together. The family and friends of the bride and the family and friends of the groom, they come together and they celebrate the union between these individuals. But they're not just celebrating the union between the two individuals, they are celebrating the union of the entire, community. And then we have the religious marriage, which we often refer to as church marriage. This is also a bringing together of communities, that for the bride and that for the groom. But then they take these vows to be husband and wife until death do them part, in the presence of God, in a church. And then we have common law marriage. In common law marriage, it is not necessary that immediate family members are brought together. It is not actually necessary that you have to go before a judge or any kind of legal personality to have this kind of marriage consummated. What happens is that the man and the woman will live together, and then they will have to have presented themselves to friends and family members as husband and wife, even though they did not have any kind of celebrations to actually announce their union. And then the second concept is divorce. What is divorce? Divorce is defined as the formal dissolution of a marital relationship. The formal dissolution of a marital relationship. Now, there are two dimensions to a divorce. First of all, you have an emotional or psychological disconnect, where a husband and wife live together, but they do not do things together as husband and wife. In some cases, they might even have their own parts of the house as belonging to one person or the other. They do not do things together. They are emotionally disconnected. They are psychologically disconnected, and in most cases, they are physically disconnected. And then you have the legal divorce. The legal divorce, which forms the primary purpose for our conversation today, is that where the couple will have to go before a court, go before a judge in a court, go before lawyers, file a divorce, and then they are legally separated. So why is it that African marriages, that of first generation Africans in America, why is it that there is an increase in the divorce rate? Now, in 2008, a Nigerian geologist and environmentalist called Dr. Ernest Ndukwe wrote a book called Is Marriage Doomed in America? Speaking from personal experience, he proposed some factors that are responsible for divorce between husbands and wives who are descendant from Africa in the United States. The first thing he said was there's the lack of extended family support. That back in Africa, if a husband and wife have issues, normally they invite family members, or family members will intercede from both sides to see what the problems are and see to what extent they can help to make things better. But such instances are very, very rare in America. Then he talked about the ease in getting divorced. In America, for instance, the only reason you can give for getting a divorce from a court is irreconcilable differences. It means that you have decided that for as long as both of you have been together, there are differences that you cannot reconcile, and for that reason you need a divorce. There doesn't have to be any other reason, but you can just use irreconcilable differences. So, for example, in Africa, you cannot just use irreconcilable differences. When people get married, there is dowry to be paid. You may have to bring some cows, you pay bride price, you have entire communities concerned, entire communities involved, so it is actually very difficult to get a divorce, not just stating that there are irreconcilable differences that will necessitate that the divorce be granted. And then he also said there is a loss of cultural values, that the American way of life has made it very easy for men and women to be divorced from each other. That, for instance, in Africa, where the minute you get married, the woman is your wife, you are her husband, you begin to think of how to raise children and make the family move forward. You do not have things like Valentine, where you have to buy flowers for the woman. You do not have anything like birthdays where you have to celebrate, have a lot of people come around, so that you are actually celebrating the woman and celebrating your marriage. He also advanced economic challenges, that both spouses in the United States of America have to work. And for that reason, they are both tired at the end of the day. But in some cases, the man still wants the woman to do most of the housework. And when that is not forthcoming, some men take offense and they have issues to deal with their wives not being real wives. And then he talked about materialism, that there's so much greed that when most African women come to the United States of America, they want more than they actually can afford. And for this reason, they do so many jobs and they do not have enough time to involve their husbands in their lives, and so the marriages suffer. Apart from that, there is another opinion from a pastor, a Kenyan pastor called Pastor Terry Gobanga, who is the pastor of Stone to Ruby's Ministries, that there's this African mentality that a lot of African men still exercise when they come to the United States of America. They do not believe that their wives are their mates. They do not believe that their wives can have some kind of freedom. They think that that woman is their wives and the woman is treated as property. And when the woman becomes socialized into the American way of life, it is difficult for her to continue to accept that kind of punitive measure. And then we have Isaac Kariuki, the chairman and CEO of diasporamessenger.com, who also says that divorce, when it gets to the United States of America between Africans, is treated as a social contract. It is like everybody has to bring in their own part. The man is no longer regarded as the head of the household, and in most cases where the woman makes more money, that the man is treated as a subhuman by the woman. For that reason, an African man will not want to take it, and he requires divorce. He demands divorce from the woman so he can go his own way. Now, these are very, very important factors, but there are so many salient points that these factors do not address. First of all, I look at about 7 issues that are not taken cognizance of in the discussion of divorce amongst first-generation Africans in America. The first one is the misrepresentation of self when the couple first meet. When an African man travels to Africa, for instance, from the United States to get married, in most cases he changes dollars to whatever currency the African country uses, and he has a whole lot of money. Then he begins to look for that which the money can buy. He's not actually looking for a mate, and if care is not taken, he begins to think based on how much money he has in his hands. He is thinking based on the social status that has automatically come his way without actually looking for real emotional reasons for which he is getting married. That could be very, very deceptive. And when the woman gets to the United States of America and realizes that the man does not really have everything that he projects himself to have, divorce is very likely to occur. And then there is marrying above your social status. You can either marry up, marry down, or marry equally. When, for instance, you are in Africa and you know you have not come to the United States of America now, you live in Africa, and you meet a lady who is very beautiful, who is up there, and you know within your heart and yourself that in Africa you are not qualified to date that lady, to take her out, talk less of being her husband. Even if you go to the United States of America and come back, you are still probably not qualified to be her husband. If you marry such a lady because of the status that you have found yourself in, there's every likelihood that divorce will end the marriage. And then there is this draconic subjectivity of spouses. There are spouses who come into relationships not believing that they are supposed to grow together. They have their subjective needs. They say it is their way or the highway. They do not want to do anything. They see the kitchen continuously as the domain of the woman. And a woman who lives in the United States of America, who works hard just like you do, demands some kind of respect because that woman is contributing to the growth of your family. There has to be some kind of unity of purpose that will make it a relationship that will last forever. Where that is not existent, the marriage is very likely to end up in divorce. And then there is an unwelcome interference of friends and family members in relationships. In the United States of America, some families bring their mothers or their fathers or members of their families to help them babysit. In most cases, these individuals begin to interfere in the relationship between the man and the woman. Where, for instance, the woman makes a lot of money, they will begin to put things in her head. Your mates have built houses in Africa. What are you still doing here? And when they accept those kinds of indications without first thinking of the necessity for their primary families to grow, there is likely to be divorce. Then there is a lack of personal development. Some men will leave the United States of America, they go to Africa, they marry a woman because she is a nurse, because she's a medical doctor, or because she's a pharmacist. When you marry that woman and you bring her to the United States of America, and you have not personally developed yourself as a person, you have not developed yourself to the extent that you grab every opportunity that comes your way, that helps your family to grow, but you are depending on the intellectual ability of the woman to help the family move forward, you are very likely to face divorce. And then there is no dating. A lot of marriages, they say, are successful on the second missionary journey. That is to say, most people who marry women from Africa do not have the opportunity to date them. Now, this is not to say that there are not marriages that originate that way that do not work out, but in most cases, if you do not have the opportunity to date the woman that you are going to marry, at least you have a way of knowing if this person is the kind of person I want to wake up every single day of my life to look. Then her morning smell is not a smell, it is an aroma to you. She is beautiful to you no matter what she looks like, no matter when she wakes up. If you do not have the opportunity to know that by first filtering the personality of that person through a dating process, it is most likely that your marriage will not last long. It will probably end up in divorce. And then there is no love. Love is that intense, emotional, and affectionate feeling that somebody has for someone else. In most cases, it doesn't even matter what that person has in terms of intellectual and academic capacity. It doesn't matter how beautiful or ugly that person is. The most important thing is that you love them the way they are, and they love you too. And regardless of what the situation might be, both of you are most likely to make it, because you can create out of that love a dynamic for the survival of your relationship and therefore the survival of your family. Thank you so very much for watching this episode. Like us on Facebook and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Next time, we'll be talking about issues that must be reconciled, regardless of what shape or fashion the divorce takes. One more time, I am Dr. Michael Umunna, and thank you so very much for watching.